And today I'm here to address the question of whether there's been a widespread pattern of unconstitutional discrimination by state governments against LGBT employees. This finding will help support Congress with its authority to provide a private right of action to state employees who suffer discrimination. My testimony is based on a study that we've conducted for the past 12 months. My co-investigators of the study, the principal co-investigators, are Nan Hunter, who's a professor of law at Georgetown University Law Center, and law fellow Christy Mallory. We've also been assisted by 10 law firms and a number of scholars. Although the report is lengthy, I'm going to focus on four types of evidence we considered. The first are surveys of LGBT employees themselves. The Institute has done reviews in the past of private and public employees who've been surveyed. This time we identified 80 surveys which either completely dealt with state and other government employees, or there were substantial part who were government employees and we could identify that part. All of these show that when asked, LGBT employees of state and local governments report high rates of discrimination in hiring and firing and promotion and harassment. For example, one of the largest such studies, completely of state employees, was conducted during this past year. It surveyed 1,900 employees of state universities and college. 13% reported they'd experienced discrimination or harassment in the last year alone. Second, we collected complaints, administrative complaints from states and local agencies with ordinances or laws that currently prohibit sexual orientation and gender identity discrimination. Although we contacted over 200 agencies, not all of them responded. Those that did provided us with 430 complaints. To the extent we could tell which were state and which were local employees, 265 of those complaints came from state employees. Third, we reviewed studies on the difference in wages between LGBT employees in state government and their heterosexual counterparts. Prior studies in the private sector have shown that gay men earn about 8 to 23% less than their heterosexual counterparts. These studies confirm the same, that gay men, lesbians, and bisexuals earn 8% to 29% less in the public sector. Fourth, we compiled a set of documented examples of discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. We collected examples from court cases, from the administrative complaints, academic journals, books, newspapers, and community-based organizations. In total, we compiled a set of 300 specific examples which we believe both document and illustrate the type of discrimination that state employees face. The record demonstrates that discrimination is widespread in terms of quantity, geography, and occupations. Geographically, every state is represented except North Dakota, which has a smaller population. The LGBT employees discriminated against work for every branch of government. The examples include public employees who help people find jobs and housing and health care, teachers and professors, state troopers and prison guards, judges, bus drivers, and tax collectors, and even some who work for the DMV. In many of these cases, courts have found violations of protections of equal right, free expression, and privacy. What is missing in all of these cases is any rational reason for the adverse employment action. In none of these cases do the employers assert that someone's sexual orientation and gender identity impact their workplace performance. The irrationality of the discrimination is vividly indicated by the harassment that many of these workers have been subjected to. With my apologies, here's a very limited sense of what they are called in the workplace. An officer at a state correctional facility in New York, pervert and homo. A lab technician at a state hospital in Washington, dyke. An employee of New Mexico's juvenile justice system, a queer. The language in the report gets worse from there. What is also striking about these examples is the level of physical violence that accompanies that verbal harassment. A gay employee of the Connecticut State Maintenance Department was tied up by his hands and feet. A firefighter in California had urine put in her mouthwash, and a transgender correction officer in New Hampshire was slammed against a concrete wall. When employees complain about this kind of harassment, they are often told it is their own making and no action is taken. This 380 examples should in no way be taken as a complete record of the discrimination against LGBT employees by state and local governments. First, as I said, a number of the administrative agencies, most in fact, did not provide us with redacted copies of their complaints. Second, many cases settle out of court. Many of the strong cases settle before there is any record. Third, LGBT employees are often reluctant to pursue their claims because they don't want to out themselves further in their community and face further discrimination. A report this year by the Transgender Law Center found that 15% of those who had experienced discrimination, only 15%, went on to file a complaint. For all these reasons, plus the rest of the research that is in our report, we conclude there has been a widespread and persistent pattern of unconstitutional discrimination against LGBT state government employees. Thank you.